and welcome to today's Bitrix24 live Q&A. Thank you for joining today. Okay, so in today's Q&A, we'll be able to go through all of your questions about Bitrix24. So that can range from CRM, project management, HR, any areas around customization. We'll be able to answer your questions today. So please do post your questions into the question box on Zoom and on LinkedIn, and we'll be able to answer those questions for you. Okay, so we've had quite a few questions come in previously this week, so we'll start off with answering some of those questions. Let's go into our Bitrix24 system. Okay, and quite a popular question that we have here, and it's all regarding a new feature called Smart Scripts. So a question's come in here: what is the Smart Script functionality and how can this be used? So this feature, it's a really good question. This feature is available on both the cloud and the on-premise edition of Bitrix24. So it's being released now to the on-premise system. And this feature is available on leads, deals, contacts, and companies. And with this feature, what we can do is we can trigger a script of automations. So whether that's email communications to a client, or it could be tasks for your internal team, we can run those automations directly inside the system. And those automations we can then trigger automatically without changing the stages of the lead or a deal. They can be triggered as and when you require. Okay, so let's now take a look at the Smart Script feature here. So what we want to do is, on this lead database here, there are different leads here that we want to update automatically. So as standard inside the system here, if I wanted to update the lead ratings here on some of these leads, I would have to go into each lead manually, like so. And I would then have to update that lead inside the system here. So if I wanted to update, I would have to go into here like so. But what we can do, one of the features with Smart Scripts, is we can bulk update information inside the CRM. So that's a really nice tool that we can use. So let's have a look at how we could create a script to bulk update information for the lead rating. We want to update the leads to very hot. So we can go into our Smart Scripts feature here, and we can click on Create Script. So first of all, we want to give this script a description. So let's call this script updating lead to very hot. And you can also add a more detailed description if you need to, but I think that the script name there is fairly self-explanatory. And then from there, we can add an automation. And so what we want to do here is we want to update that lead rating. So essentially, we want to modify the item. So we can go into here, click on modify, and then we can select the field like so. So inside here, we want to select the lead rating, and then we select what we want to update those records to. So let's update them to the very hot stage. Okay, and then we can save that in here. We can then save that like so. And so now, if we just refresh, what we're able to do is we can now bulk update those records in our lead database. So let's say if I want to select the leads here that are currently marked as cold, I want to update these leads to be made very hot. We've spoken to them today. They're now really interested in our products. So here I can run the script and select that, and it will now work on all of those leads inside the system. Okay, so let's now apply that script and let's refresh. And we can now see those requests have now updated to very hot. So if you've got a lot of data in your Bitrix24 system, the Smart Scripts feature is going to become very useful to update information inside the system. But you don't just have to use the Smart Scripts for updating. You might want to use this to maybe update to progress your leads. So let's say, for example, you might want to send out maybe an email communication to specific leads of a certain segment of your lead database. So what you could also run inside here is you could run scripts for email communications to your leads. So let's say, for example, here, if we've got a discount code, what we could do here is we could set up a chain of email communications. So in this automation sequence here, we've got an email that is being sent out to the lead like so. So we're promoting a discount. And then after this, we've got some tasks to be completed. So we're going to get back in contact with the lead to check if they are interested in moving forward with their offer of that discount. And then we can further on here set up a notification rule so we can follow up with that lead. So essentially we could run a whole lead progression process in a script there. And so again, what I might want to do through here is I could now select all of those leads that are very hot, because I think there's a very good chance we can get these leads to progress. And then I could run that specific script of offering them a discount. Okay, so let's select those leads. And then I can go into my smart script and send out that discount code. So that's now going to send that email out to all of these leads. So we don't need to change the stages of the leads. There's nothing else that we need to run. The script is doing everything for us here. So let's just refresh. Okay, and now let's go into one of these leads. And we can see that discount code email has now been sent out to the lead. And then we're going to get an automated reminder to follow up with that lead in 2 days' time because the script has run in the system. So the script feature, it allows you to run automations and bulk update information through any lead, deal, contact, or company. So it's a very powerful tool. And that's something we can train you on moving forward. It's a really brand new tool available inside Bitrix. Okay, we have had a question come in on LinkedIn. What is the benefits of Bitrix24? It's a very broad question, but Bitrix24, in a summary, it's a system that encompasses CRM, project management tools, and automations, essentially, and HR features, and it essentially allows you to manage your entire business inside the one solution. So rather than having multiple different softwares, you could manage your entire business directly through the one system. And if you've got specific questions, we can then drill down into those in today's session. And another question we had earlier in the week, so is looking at scripts, which is a new feature. And another new feature is, fairly new feature, is smart process automation. So question came in around how can we use the smart process automation feature inside the system? So essentially, let's just start off to understand actually what a smart process automation is. Essentially, the SPA feature, which is available inside the CRM system here, allows you to create brand new entities inside the CRM system. So as standard, you've got leads, deals, contacts, and companies. Those are the key entities that you have inside your Bitrix system. Now, what we can do is with the SPA feature is we can create new entities that you can then link across the existing entities inside the system. Now, this feature is only available from the professional cloud license and above. All on-premise systems have this. But if you're on a basic cloud or a standard cloud license, you won't have access to this. You will need to upgrade to the professional cloud license to access this. But let's say, for example, if we wanted to manage a returns process inside our CRM system, so customers purchase products using the deals functionality, which is a very standard way to purchase products, you may need to have a return process to be able to manage any returns that the customers have to send back to you. Now, with the SPA feature, we can then create that return entity inside the system. And so you can see here, we've got a returns entity and we can see different products that are being returned. Now, if we just click into some of these, with the SPA feature, you create all of the custom fields that you need to have associated to that entity. So just like in leads and deals, You can create the different fields that you want to run on the products. So for this return, we're adding information about when the return was initiated, what the value of that return is, and some extra details about that return. So you can really customize the actual entities as well. And then very similar to leads and deals, you can create different stages that you might need to progress that entity through. So for example, if we have a returns process, you very similarly may need to have a flow of a workflow to manage that return. So you can create the stages, and then you can also create the automation rules as you progress the return through the system. So let's say once the return moves to in progress, we're sending out an email to the client, making them aware that their return is now in progress. So there's lots of different automations that you can set up through the system here. So if we just come out of here and let's now move this to returns in progress. And as you can see here, this is connected with the contact and company database in the CRM system. So we've connected the contacts and the clients associated to the return. Now I'm going to move the return to in progress, and that's now going to set up an automation rule inside the system to trigger. And what we can do is really nice, the actual information you see here. Let's go into the contact database. You're able to see this information directly inside the client's page. So inside the contact database, let's go into one of our contacts. With the SPA feature, you can then pull into your existing records. So here, for example, we can see the returns area. So I can click into that client and I can then see all of the returns that are associated with this client. So you've got that complete integration between your brand new entities and the existing entities that you had inside this system. So that's a new feature we have. So you just need to make sure you have at least a professional cloud license to be able to access that. Okay, question we've got here on Zoom. Can I modify the source code at the back end, front end of site and online store? So in terms of if you're wanting to have access to the source code, you need to have the on-premise edition of Bitrix. So if I just show you here, this is the cloud edition here. So you can see across the top, there's no additional features here. This is an on-premise edition of Bitrix, and you can see here as an administrator, I have access here to the control panel. So with this inside the control panel, you do then have access to the source code. So the on-premise edition allows you to completely customize the system. And if I just come back into the front end here, we also have an edit mode. So from here, what I can now start to do is I could start to edit menu items inside the system here. So if I wanted to, I could customize the whole menu structure inside here. So it really depends what you want to do. But here now I could start to modify the menu structure, change terminology inside the system. So if you're wanting to access the backend source code, that's only available with the on-premise edition of Bitrix. Now you mentioned around the online store. Now the online store, again, there's no source code essentially with the online store, but what you can do is you can use the sites and stores module to create your very own online sites and stores. So if this is what you're referring to, this is the online stores feature here. So with this, you can essentially create your own pages to create an online store. And then through here, you can then add products that you can then sell in your online store. So through here, we can add different blocks. So if you wanted to add different landing pages or images, for example, you can use this block technology. So let's say if you wanted to add maybe a video of the products that you sell, I could upload a block image here of a video, and then I could edit and upload my video into the page here. So if you're looking to have an online store, you can use the online store module to create and customize your store using Bitrix24, and then you can connect your payment system here. Okay, so you can connect a payment gateway such as Stripe, and then you're able to take payments for the products that you have in your online store. Okay, but essentially your question to start with there, if you want to have access to the source code, you need to have an on-premise edition of Bitrix24 to access that code. And if you're on a cloud system right now, we can migrate you to the on-premise system. So we can manage that migration process. If you need hosting services, again, we can use our hosting service to manage and host an on-premise edition of Bitrix24 for you. Okay, so keep your questions coming in on Zoom and on LinkedIn, and we'll continue to go through those during the session. And we have had some other questions come in earlier on in the week, so let's now go through a few of those. So the question we get asked this quite a lot is, how do we change the currency inside the CRM system? So obviously Bitrix is used by over 12 million customers around the world, so businesses will use lots of different types of currencies, and especially if you're using quotes and invoices, you need to be able to customize the currency. So let's go and have a look at this. So if you go into the CRM system, what we want to do is let's just drag in here the settings. So let's go into our settings. I'll just bring this up here. Okay, so we'll go into the CRM settings here. Then you can see in the start point here, just go to currency. And then inside here, essentially, you can set and customize the currencies that you'd like to display inside your CRM system. So as you can see here, we've got pounds, dollars, and euros. But if I want to add a new currency, you can select the currency from the list like so. And there are hundreds of currencies in here that you can then select from. So you can add those different currencies into here, and then you can add and customize the exchange rates as and how you need to set those up. Okay, so that's a look at how we can add the currencies onto our system. And then from there, you're able to then generate quotes and invoices through the Bitrix24 system. Okay, and another question within the CRM is, how can I set up notifications if I'm responsible for a lead? It's a really good question, and it's really important that you do set up notifications correctly. And that's something when we do implementations, that's something we do spend a lot of time making sure that is set up correctly, because you need to make sure, especially if a new lead is coming into the CRM system, you want to be able to action that as soon as possible. So setting up the notifications is very important. So in your system here, when you are allocated a lead inside the system, all we need to make sure we're doing is, if we go to the notifications center, we can click on notifications. Now, first of all, here you can customize actually where those notifications go to. So as standard, you can receive a notification directly inside Bitrix. You can receive it as an email, or also as a push notification. I think that's my favorite. You can receive a push notification to the Bitrix mobile app. So as soon as the lead comes in, you could be pinged on your mobile phone to let you know. So that's really useful if you're out of the office with a client. You could receive that notification straight away. So we can select here the ways we want to be notified. And then if we click on the advanced mode, this gives us the breakdown of how we can set up notifications for so many different features and functionalities and triggers inside the system. But here we can see if we have been assigned as a responsible person to a lead inside the CRM, we can then tick the different ways we want to be notified. So that's how we can set that up on the CRM system for you. Okay, so another question here through Zoom. So I use an on-premise edition of Bitrix on a local server. Can you show the path to folder to store the source code for the online store? So for that question, I'm not able to show you that on here. But what we will do is I'll speak to our technical team. If you're able to add your email address into the question as well, and we can then set up a meeting with you to go through that in some more detail. Or if you want, you can email sales@intreface.com, and then we can set up a meeting with you to go through this. So I'll just add the email address into the chat box, and then you can contact us and we can set up a call with you to go through the source code in more detail. Okay. Okay, so that's a look at how we can set up notifications on the CRM systems. That's a really useful tool to be able to access. Okay, so let's now go through some more questions that we've had come in. And again, a very popular question that we do get quite a lot is, how can I track time that is spent on projects? So really not part of the CRM system as such, but it's very important if you're maybe managing a customer's project in the tasks on projects area, you want to be able to record the time that you're spending on those projects. So if we go into a project here, let's go into a project that we're working on. So here we can see the tasks associated with the project. And now what we can do is, we're working on those tasks, is we can record time on the task. And that's really important, because you need to be able to evaluate how much time has been spent on tasks across your different projects. So what we can do is we can record that time in the system. So you can click on the time tracker here, and that will now record the time that you're spending on those tasks. Or let's say if you actually maybe accidentally forgot to allocate time, you forgot to record the time on the task, you can also come into here, into the time elapsed area, and you can manually add that time into the system. So let's say on Monday, I was working on this task for 4 hours, I could manually come into here and add the information. So that's quite nice, is that we can also come into the task afterwards and also update and record that time on the task as well. And once you've recorded that time, you need to be able to report as well. So what we can do is we can go into the reports area, and then through here you can create reports using the report wizard. So what you may want to do is report on the amount of time spent across different projects. So I can see in our report here, then I can set up here. This report is now looking at the amount of time that has been spent on projects across a certain time period for this month. And so with this, we can report at a very high level how much time we are spending on our tasks across multiple projects inside Bitrix24. So we don't just record the time, you can then create high-level dashboard reports to analyze the time that you're spending on those projects. And that's a very customizable report dashboard here as well. So if you want to, say, report maybe for different date ranges or periods, you can come into the filter here and then update the report as well. Okay, so that's a look at the task, time, and reporting features of Bitrix. Okay, moving on now to look at telephony. So a question that's come in is, what are the options for integrating telephones into Bitrix? So there are a few options to integrate and manage calls inside your Bitrix24 system. So what we'll do here is, let's go into the telephony module. So first of all, you need to decide yourself as a business, do you need to keep an existing number? So that's the first thing you need to think about, because if you don't, if you're happy to use a new number, the easiest way to integrate telephone calls into Bitrix is using the rent a number feature. Okay, so this is a number that you're renting through Vox Implant. So it's essentially a Bitrix24 number. So let's say if I wanted to rent a USA number, then what I can do here is I can select the type of number that I want to rent. So let's say if it's toll-free, I could select a toll-free number, and then I could select the category for the number. And when you rent that number, that's your number then for a month, and the number will cost approximately $4 to $6 per month to rent for you. And inbound calls are included in that monthly charge, and outbound calls are then charged per minute based on the country that you are calling to. And we'll add the link for those call rates into the chat box at the end of today's session. So essentially, this is the easiest way out of the box to be able to connect numbers into Bitrix24. And then from there, you can then configure those numbers. So if we go in to look at the numbers here that we're renting, once you have set up that number, you can then set up different options. For example, we could set up an IVR menu. So as soon as the client calls into the system, we could then say, for example, press 1, and we could then forward that to a specific group of people. So let's say that's going to go to our sales team. If we select option 2, then we're going to select our support team. So you can set up an IVR menu to route your calls to the most appropriate person inside Bitrix24. And then we can also relay this message to the client. Okay, so that message would then get relayed to the client, and you can select the language as well. So you can choose the language and the voice, you can choose the speed that message gets relayed in, and also the volume. Or you could set up an audio file. So actually, if you wanted to record the actual recording for the client, then you would then be able to send that message into your IVR system. Okay, so we can set up the group there, and obviously we've set up the sales and support groups. Inside here, you can simply select who is associated to those different groups. So there's lots of settings we can configure if you rent a number in Bitrix, including recording those calls directly inside the CRM system. So that's really useful. You're able to record those calls inside the system, and also when you make outbound calls, the call can be recorded as well. So that's looking at renting a Bitrix number. So that's if you are happy to use a new number. If you need to keep an existing number, maybe you've had that for a very long time, it's kind of business critical, or maybe you've got a very good contract with your existing phone provider, then what we could do is we can look to use either the cloud or Office PBX. So essentially this uses the SIP connector to bring in your private branch exchange with your numbers and feed those into Bitrix. So then your existing phone lines are essentially connected into Bitrix24. Now, what we can do with this is we can test it for 60 minutes to make sure it works correctly. So with this, you would enter the details onto this form, and then you would be able to test for up to 60 minutes to configure outbound calls to make sure the integration has worked correctly. And that's the same as well for the Office PBX. So whether you have a cloud or an Office PBX, just select the right option here, and then you can fill in the details for the form. Or the third way, so those are the first two options. Another option is to look into the marketplace. So this is where Bitrix has integrations with phone providers, and there's some quite popular phone providers here that are integrated, such as RingCentral and Zadama. So you could also look maybe support your numbers to one of these phone providers and use the integration tool that is available here. Now, just one thing to point out with these plans, I'm not saying all of these plans are the same, but for example, with RingCentral, you need to make sure you have a premium or an enterprise RingCentral plan to be able to use this feature. So just bear in mind that you need to make sure you have that level of plan with the phone provider to be able to have that integrated into the system. So that's the third way, essentially, of integrating telephone calls. And then you're able to receive calls directly inside the system. You can then make outbound calls and create call lists. So for example, this client here, if I wanted to call Samoon, I could click and call. Okay, and then I could speak to the client through the system, or we can record calls as well. So you can see here we've got some call recordings, so I can play those calls back as well. So you have that complete history then of all of the communication that takes place with your clients through telephone calls. So that's something, again, we can look at with you if you're looking to integrate and set up a phone system. We can look to help you with that as well. Okay, so let's just see if there's any other questions that have come in. Okay, as I say, on LinkedIn and on Zoom, you can keep adding your questions and we can run through those during the session today. Okay, yeah, question here, is it possible to create an activity from a deal automatically? So I'm not sure exactly what trigger you're referring to, but yeah, yes, absolutely, you can create activities on your leads and deals. An easy way to do this is using automation rules. So if you're new to automation rules, essentially on leads and deals, as you progress the lead and deal through your sales cycle, through your customized stages here, you can then create activities and automated processes or communications to the client through the system. So for example, then, so the question was, can I create an activity automatically? Yes, you can. So let's go into our automation area. And all I have to do here is select, if I spell activity, I can choose the plan activity feature. Now, let's say I want to run this when I get to the build a proposal stage. So essentially at this stage, I want to create an activity for the sales rep to build that proposal. So let's type it in here. Okay, and we're going to run this immediately as soon as we hit this stage of the deal. But you might say, actually, for a different type of activity, maybe it's a follow-up call. You might say, for example, let's run this once we've been at this stage for, let's say, 2 days, for example. So you can completely customize that time parameter depending on how quickly you want this actioned inside the deal. So I'm going to set that inside here, and I'm going to set a deadline on the day. So let's say they've got till 5 p.m. to run and complete that activity. And let's just change the title. Okay, so I've added that into the system here, and let's now just save that activity. Okay, so that's now added the activity into the system. And now let's go into one of our deals that we're working on. So we're currently working on this deal. And what we're going to do now is let's progress this deal to the build proposal stage. Okay, and then what we'll see is it will create an activity inside the system. So let's just refresh. And we can see there that the build proposal activity has been added into our activity log. So now I've got till 5 p.m. to complete that task, and I can add any additional notes into here. Okay. And if you want to actually create that proposal, let's now just touch on the document generator inside Bitrix. So actually, when you are building a proposal, you could use the document generator system that's available inside Bitrix. So essentially, what we can do is you can upload your own templates of information. So let's say if it's a proposal document, you can upload your static information onto here with your kind of branding and any static information. And then what we can do is we can map fields from the CRM system. So any field from the CRM, we can then map onto that proposal document to generate that document inside the system. And you could actually, I'm going to show you this manually first of all. So here in the document generator, let's say, for example, I want to create this statement of work. So we could pull information from the CRM to generate that proposal. So it's brought through our static information, and then we can manage the information here. So you could pull in information for your record. And then I could send this out to the client, or I could download it as a PDF. But what we could also do during that stage, maybe that build proposal stage, you could also have Bitrix generate the document for you without having to do anything. So we could also use the create a document feature, and we could run that again as soon as we hit the build proposal stage. I could simply select that document template, and then it will automatically create that statement of works document for me inside the system. Okay, so that's how we could use the document generator to generate documents directly inside the system. Okay, so there's no more questions right now. So let's just check if we've had any others on LinkedIn. Okay, so I think that's complete all of the questions for today's Bitrix24 live Q&A. If there are any other questions in the meantime before our next session, please do contact us, sales@intreface.com, and one of our team will be happy to discuss those with you. But thank you for joining today. And as I say, if you are looking to evaluate Bitrix in more detail, please do get in touch and we can run through a demonstration. Or if you have any questions, we can answer those for you. Thank you very much for joining today's live Q&A. Bye for now, and I look forward to seeing you in the near future.